Do you have an agenda? Is there any additions or changes? Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
So move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next would be the approval of the meeting minutes from June 16th.
So move.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting minutes approved. Warrants sent out.
Motion to pay the bills, Mr. Chair.
Second,
Second.
any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So we're a little ahead of schedule. I do have a thank you note from Kent Matson, CEO of Lake Region Healthcare. He just appreciates the ability to present and talk to us about their plans for their hospital system at our last meeting, and so he wanted to extend the thank you for our leadership and their ability to address us. So, the other thing we have a ARPA request from City of Norcross. That's in here, I guess. They're asking, and open it up here. I'm guessing that is their allotted amount. Yep. So they're requesting, it has their, what they're looking at, had a $12,000 project and they're requesting the $7,000 that they're allotted. Is there a motion to accept City of Norcross's request?
So move.
Second,
Second.
any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We also have then the City of Wendell. Likewise, their allocation was 19,000, right, Chad?
Yeah.
So they're requesting, they've estimated project cost is a little over that, which they've described in their application. Is there a motion to accept their request.
So moved. Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So. We had a deadline, or we had a sunset on. Can you help me with that, Chad? What was it? Was it August or September or what?
I believe it was September
I think it was September.
Okay. So, yeah, so it's not obviously July 1st, so we know that. It's probably not, so if we have. Well, we can address that maybe in a future meeting if. But we were charged with contacting our respective. Townships or cities, and. From that
I
standpoint,
think you have too many cities and townships left.
right, definitely most of them, quite a few,
I
so,
can work on that and get that sent to us to who's remaining.
The ones I got, the ones that I talked to, I told them they had to be done by the 1st of August.
okay, so you got the ball, rolling in that respect.
And I talked to, I believe Sanford did request, so it'd be heard all that's left, and I just talked to.
And I don't know if Elk Lake, if she sent her stuff in or not yet, it hasn't showed up, so. I did talk to them. I'll wait till Bill comes back, we could do that. I don't believe anyone's gonna be here from the Grand County Collaborative, so we could address that at 10:30 item. In essence, the time. So we're gonna jump down and address this Grant County Collaborative Governance Agreement. You're on that board or committee, right, Bill?
Yeah, Dwight and I are both.
Oh, okay, so you wanna talk about this at all, or do we need, what's,
Well, it's a contract that has to get to the state.
Yeah, there's like, there's a lot of signatures, you know, all the schools and the county board has to sign off on it. There's a whole bunch of people that got adopted, I guess, so. But, touch on it a little bit.
I was looking for,
It was decided on 5th of June that it could have come to us before that. But we got it in time. So we're good to go there.
so. What we, and I checked a little bit with Kari and Justin has the document to review, and he alluded that it very likely would get to it this week, and so I would ask that we approve, spend sign, approve the agreement pending the review by our county attorney. And Kari has not submitted the document and with to DHS, because there's some other of the organizations that are waiting for board meetings. But
Okay,
she's cleared the path with them. And
okay,
basically, I asked her if there's any significant changes, and one of the things she said they've had since they've gotten involved more in mental health piece, so there's a reference to children's mental health in the collaborative. And then also that there's some participants that are participating and help funded that weren't listed in the document, so it's really bringing it up to speed. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
they've added Lakeland Mental Health, Lake Region Healthcare, West Central Initiative, and Thorson Memorial Library to the governing board.
Okay, so thank you for that. So what I would do is ask for a motion to accept through the bill signed it, and he did talk to me because there was a deadline, but the deadline was a little bit subjective on all the other signatures.
Okay.
But ask for a motion to accept it pending Justin's review.
Well, I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Well, second.
Any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
It is, just to go back, it is September 1st that the ARPA money has to be requested by.
Okay. Thank you for that. So along that line, since we got 3 minutes, Bill and Dwight, do you wanna add anything? I mean, I would be like a committee report and impromptu from that collaborative. Have you seen more stuff going on with Corey being involved, or kind of what's happening?
Well, she's had several programs, me and you went to one.
Yeah.
And she's on the ball, with all that stuff, and there's more to come, there'll be lots of things, but she's doing a good job there, organizing and informing people and things like that, so. And the mental health end of it, that's a good deal, because, I think it was severely lacking, there was, accessibility to that stuff and things like that.
Yeah, that motivational speaker she had in Ashby last fall, they went to the school along with. Or whenever it was, I think it was last fall, so she's doing, good things and, you know what I mean, and she's a change maker facilitator, I'm just reading off of some of the email that she's saying, she's very engaged in the community, and I mean, there's a lot going on in there.
One thing, and she did send a email that. And that was once again another deadline, but we did approve that to apply for that grant, which they got.
Right.
That $15,000 grant. So. That's exciting and,
Yeah.
and so.
There's a lot of players at this table,
Yeah,
all the schools, and I mean, there's a lot to it.
yeah,
So but you gotta I mean, we're more the, the governance portion of the contracting and all that stuff, that they need to carry the ball and take the lead and, keep everybody, abreast of what's happening. That motivational speaker, I thought he was good. I'm hoping he touched some hearts with some of that discussion, which I'm sure he did.
okay, by the time you two get up here, since we are recording, it'll be 9:15, so. If you wanna grab another chair and I'll let you introduce yourselves and then. Give us your West Central Minnesota Communities Action update.
I'm Joni House, the Affordable Housing Director at West Central.
And I'm Diane Bender, Weatherization Program Admin.
I just wanted to start by saying thank you to Ken Johnson and the rest of the commissioners for your support of affordable housing. I think it's going to be a great beginning to bring in additional housing to the county. So I just wanted to say a big thank you again to all of you for that. And then the handouts, you got our 2023 annual report, kind of goes over all our programs at West Central and our numbers from the past year. And Diane will go a little more in depth on some more specific numbers for energy assistance, weatherization, and Head Start, as well as Group Cares Camp, which is coming next year. So she will.
To Ashby. Woo-hoo. Okay. Let's talk about the year in review for Grant County. So for energy assistance, 357 households were served with the heating grant, which also covers electric bills if they want a certain percentage of that primary heat grant going to their electric bill. That is up to the household when they apply for energy assistance. The primary heat benefit was 228,809. And then we get to the bigger dollar of crisis. So once their primary heat has been exhausted, they have the opportunity to call in and ask for crisis dollars. So that expenditure was 322,169. Some nice numbers for Grant County. Water funds was $46,006. And then we get to ERR, which is a sister program to the Energy Assistance Program, one of the programs that I facilitate. And what that is it's an emergency program that restores heat where there once was heat. So the program typically begins in October and then ends in May. And for energy-related repair, we expended 56,413. And the total for Grant County was 653,397. And then we move into weatherization. Households first must be approved for energy assistance in order to be eligible for the weatherization program. And as you probably know, what weatherization does is we come in and we have contractors, namely mechanical, electrical, and building shop, that come on in and do some spectacular work to make homes in our Grant County, housing stock more energy efficient. So we expended $119,100 last year for Grant County households. And then we'll move into Head Start. The number of children that received Head Start services is 30, and early Head Start was 10 for a total of 40. And then the cost per child is $13,145, and for early Head Start is $15,245. So our numbers are $394,350 for Head Start. Early Head Start was $152,450 for a total of $546,800. Any questions? Some really nice numbers for Grant County. And wonderful that we can, facilitate these services and help our community and our youngsters.
Are
Because
you
they're our
seeing-
future.
Are you seeing some of these federal dollars start to decline coming in? Are they, is that the talk?
Great question. So for energy assistance, we have seen our numbers go back to pre-COVID.
Right.
Excuse me, I have a little summer cold. So they have gone back to pre-COVID, and as far as eligibility, that is pre-COVID as well. So where we've seen so many households eligible for the program due to changes in the application process and what they're eligible for as far as income, that certainly has changed. And, unfortunately, what I saw this year, because working in the furnace repair program, they first must be eligible for that energy assistance benefit. the households calling in and wanting that furnace repair if they weren't eligible for energy, which this year I had the highest number of denied households for that service, unfortunately. But we do have resources that we readily give out because we have a lot of great partners within our service territory.
So in the past, that energy, help me out a little bit, the energy assistance team had helped another county or another organization with apps.
Ramsey, Washington,
So
yes.
did our team help those areas again? Or didn't?
So- What I do know is that Andrea, who is our energy assistance coordinator, she is seen as a very knowledgeable person throughout the state. She has a lot of expertise and years working in the energy assistance program. And I know that there was another community action partner that reached out. And I don't recall the name of that one, but I know that she continues to assist wherever needed. So she's just a very key component in the state, as is her team.
So another question, since I go to these meetings, and I know it's not in your necessarily wheelhouse, but it's in your building, is what we're seeing in Head Start. And some of the numbers and kind of this, how it's evolving. Can you weigh in on that a little bit?
Would you like me to weigh in? Do you maybe know more from the director's meeting?
I think the way we're sitting now with our Head Start, from what I've heard, is that we're in a much stronger position than a lot of other Head Start. Just because of both enrollment and staffing, have been very fortunate on the staffing side of things. It seems like a lot of places have positions that haven't been filled, and then they're unable to open the Head Start Center. So I guess that's kind of a hats off to Jim, the Head Start director, and his team of being able to put all those pieces together and still be able to provide that service to those families.
Right, and Julie, who is another key component in the Head Start program, she's actually the co for the group cares camp piece. She was telling me the other day that, you know, they send out applications or are receiving applications year round, but they are almost full in all of their locations. So that is terrific. And then weatherization, when you were talking about departments, if there's been a decline. So weatherization, what we've actually seen is an influx in dollars. So for example, the Department of Energy is giving us some additional funding, which actually began July 1. Our closeout is June 30th of each year. And so we are looking at doubling the amount of households that we will serve for what we call now PY24. We just completed PY23.
Yeah, and then correct me if I'm wrong with those dollars too, they've broadened the scope of what can be completed with weatherization, where there might have been deficiencies in the home that would have prevented weatherization from being done, like a leaky roof or something like that, but now they're gonna be able to address some of those issues so they can move forward with the weatherization component.
So that additional pot of money is called weatherization readiness funds. So those homes that were previously deferred, as Joe stated, we can now go back in and we can hire contractors and we can, you know, alleviate that problem. One of the things that we are seeing is vermiculite, of course, knob and tube. And so with those dollars that we have from the state, we're able to get back into homes. So that's all really good stuff. You know, we want to keep families in Grant County as we do in all of our other counties. So keeping that housing stock, you know, healthy and energy efficient is really key.
So I think had 125,000 that we ended up with the amount for the housing program. You wanna give us the 4.5 minute CLT talk or information, and then a little bit about, we're gonna have a groundbreaking, here in Elbow Lake, Joe, you wanna
Yeah,
touch on that?
yeah, sure. So the funds that we received from the Grant County, it'll be used for our community land trust model. What that is essentially the owner of the home owns the home, but we retain ownership of the land as through a ground lease fee. It's a 99-year renewable lease. In return, it keeps the home affordable. If they were to sell, they can get a 25% of the increase in market value plus any equity they have in the home. But then that's for the next buyer, to keep it affordable for them. So the intended purpose of those dollars are gonna remain for that purpose of keeping that home affordable, essentially for the life of the house. It's not a revolving door where some grants you get the funds and then homeowner sells or something happens and then those dollars are gone and you kind of start back from square one, where the land trust model, you're able to produce a permanent stock of affordable housing in the community and not hopefully reach a point where you have enough and you're not constantly having to funnel more dollars to the same problem that you were trying to correct before.
How many, do we have, or have you done, or,
Right now, with, because we have some of our own, we also have a partnership with Habitat for Humanity of Douglas County. Right now, we're at 7 land trust homes.
Biggie Sherman and Douglas, or were, are they?
Yep, we have 4 in Polk County. And then Douglas County.
Okay. So it'd be revenue that would be revolving.
Yep, they pay, and then they pay, I forgot to mention, they pay a $35 land lease fee monthly. And those funds, we kind of try to recirculate back into the program. The stewardship piece is a big part of it, kind of not being intrusive to the homeowners, but letting them know that we're there if they were to need some type of assistance, or even we're looking at starting a tool lending library. So if they need to make repairs in their homes, that they have access to some tools and can upkeep their home and things of that nature, where otherwise they might not be able to.
okay? Any other comments you have for us?
Absolutely. If you're ready, we can talk about Group Cares Camp, which is coming to Ashby next year, from June 22nd to the 28th. I don't know if each of you are familiar with Group Cares Camp. We've been in communities like Alexandria, Herman, Brandon, to name a few. But just to give you a little background of what Group Mission Trips is, they're a nonprofit. They were established in 1990. Their headquarters are in Fort Collins, Colorado. They do, millions of volunteer hours worldwide. West Central has been involved since 2010. This is where youth groups and their leaders come from all over the US. And they will be housed at the Ashby School. And what their mission is to come here and serve. And they will serve our young families, our disabled, and our seniors. The 25-mile radius, if you want to see that, which is pretty great, on page 3, we've got Wendell, Elbow Lake, of course, Ashby is our hub. Berdahl, Melby, Evansville, Millerville, Brandon, and Barrett. Right now, applications are going out, and there is an outreach to the community for Group Cares Camp. So what does this look like? So the week of Group Cares Camp, there will be youth coming from all over. They sign up and pay a fee to come here and to serve. through painting, exterior and interior. They can do some minor weatherization like weather stripping. One of the big things that is popular is those wheelchair ramps and the porch stoops, or repairing those. And they can do some skirting repairs for mobile homes. And they are here to, like I said, serve our community. They'll come on a Sunday. And they'll come by planes, trains, and automobiles, literally, with their group leaders. They'll be housed at the school. Their morning, like a typical day of a youth or a senior youth. Because this group will be all senior high students coming with their leaders. So they get up in the morning around 7. They have breakfast at the school. They take a sack lunch. They head out to the site. They start working. If they're doing exterior painting, they'll be scraping, priming, that kind of thing. They take a break in the morning for devotions. Then they get back to work, have a half-hour lunch, get back to work. And then they'll take a little break in the afternoon. Then they'll come on back to school, shower typically, and they have a evening program, and then it's lights out. So their week is very full. And they also are here to get to know the community, to get to know the residents as well. So really a wonderful week of serving. And I compare this to back in the day of going to, we used to always go to Eagle Lake as a kid. I went there and went to Luther Crest and met a lot of people, and obviously our parents paid for us to go, but it was a week of mission and fun and getting to know the community, etc. And from the time I was a 7th grader until I was a junior, I went to Eagle Lake each and every year, and we did a lot of fun stuff there. And this group is coming to help our communities, which is obviously giving back, and a wonderful week of a lot of service to our community. What we are also doing right now is we are working on fundraising. Our fundraising goal is 23,000. We're already 57% there, which is great. We have some current donors of Douglas County and Osakis area sportsmen. And some of the funding that we do have in our coffers right now is from a previous work camp that was pre-COVID. It was delayed due to COVID. So obviously when it did happen in 2021, then, and this one was in Alexandria, there were fewer students who came, but it was a very successful group cares camp. So on page 5, if you want to just look at that, you can see our goals there. You can see some pictures of the youth the senior youth who were here in Alexandria. And then on the next page is a picture of a wheelchair ramp and a before and after picture of another home that was completed. This one was actually in Wheaton when we did have Group Cares Camp in Herman. Actually, Herman was the hub that year. And then on the next page, you'll see some pictures of a couple of groups that came together and did another home. And I believe they started this one on a Wednesday and actually finished this one on a Friday. This was one that was in a reserve, and they decided they could get this one done too. So really good stuff.
Sounds good. I do believe, help me. We've, when it's come to our county, have donated, I think it's at $5,000.
Typically, yes. And so,
But that would be in our 25 budget. So
okay,
do you need any? We don't, do you need anything from us today as it relates to that, or do you trust that our commitment to the?
We trust your commitment.
Okay.
We, as always, appreciate you, and I wanted to, or Joe and I wanted to be here and let you know that Group Cares Camp is coming to the community, and it is just a wonderful week, and if any of you can participate in any way in the evening programs or want to come out and visit the sites, you are so welcome. It's just a spectacular week.
So maybe make Chad note of that as we proceed into the 25 budget work.
Yeah, we'll be sure to provide updates to
Yeah.
it as we get a little bit closer to it.
Yeah, we start early.
Yeah.
Because applicants, applications go out, that fundraising we need in place. And there's many pieces and moving parts that happen behind the scenes, which involves all staff at West Central, which is pretty great. So,
Okay.
thank you.
You're 6 minutes into Stony Brook Township.
Yeah.
That's my fault.
Sorry.
I forgot this part. But you had a very wonderful presentation and
Thank
we'll
you.
look forward to meeting you at the site.
All right,
And thank you.
sounds great.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. You're back up.
Okay, we got a team from Stony Brook who wants to come forward and since we are recording, we'd like you to be close to front and center
Underneath the microscope.
underneath the microscope.
Like we are.
Hey, Doc.
Morning.
Danny?
What's that?
Morning, sir.
Come in, put me in the middle.
Sure, you're the voice of us.
Always. I guess we're working on this road project and we've been working on this road project for a long time. Some permits have been paid, now they want us to pay for a land acquirement. I guess we're kind of wondering if we can get something in writing to say that, the monies we're spending right now, county hasn't paid any that I know of towards this project. And according to what this road and bridge thing says, we're supposed to pay afterwards, it looks like to me, after the project's done. We got any, we would like to see something in writing that would pretty much guarantee us that we're not gonna spend over the $20,000. There's $10,000 for approaches and bridge removal and up to $10,000 for engineering. So is there any way that we can get something in writing with the township
And the completion date.
and the completion date? Because we're not seeing anything happen right now except township is spending money.
A lot of meetings and talking
Yeah,
and getting nowhere.
And caved in roads that are getting dangerous.
yeah. Cause this road, I mean, we were gonna replace these culverts back in 2019. Okay, that's when this other project came up with the Lightning Dam. So that's where the expansion of the, outlet was gonna start. But
So I got a Chad or Matt. Do we have prior some narrative or information as far as what we're hearing today?
Well, it's been engineered. I mean, we've got drawings from an engineer for it that you guys have, that the county has done. But there's no engineer here, I think it's.
So, yeah, Matt,
Yeah,
so
Matt.
maybe Matt, you wanna help us a little bit? Guide us?
guidance, map.
What part would you like to know about first? Status of the project, I suppose, that's what these guys are looking for.
Yeah, completion date.
Well, there's no completion date right now because we can't advertise the project just yet. That's what we're waiting on, wetland mitigation credits to be completed.
It does sound like here though, every one should be completed within 3 to 5 years.
We're on 5 years.
We're over 5, we're actually over if it started 2017, but
That's long before my time. I can't speak to when this project was started, but
no.
we're at the point where once the wetland mitigation is completed, then I would put together the proposal and advertise for bids this fall.
But now they're coming to us for $5,600 to buy land, but here it says 100% of the costs. For any right-of-way acquisition is paid by the county, not by the township.
Right-of-way acquisition isn't reimbursable, wetland mitigation credits that you pay is reimbursable. So the way the funding would work is, once the project is bid and it's awarded, then the state would put 95% of the funds into an account that we can draw from. And if you have invoices or costs, you can just ship them to the highway department, and we'll submit that as along with everything else once construction starts. And that way, if you've spent more than $10,000, you'll get that money back.
But you gotta spend it first.
The bridge and the approach, so your out of pocket wouldn't be more than $20,000 total. Anything beyond that $20,000 you would get back.
We're looking at this, so we write this check, we've already wrote one for over $2,000 to get this thing started, so we're already pushing close to $8,000 into this. And our max should only be 10 for this engineering part. Well, and we don't even have assurance that it's gonna happen yet.
Well, the
So-
funding's been set aside and approved. Once the plans were approved, the funding's there. It's just, once the project's bid, that's when it becomes available.
Right, but how much money are we gonna spend on this before we even, I mean, we could be sitting at 20,000 on this before we're even going.
And how many more years?
That kind of hurts our
Outside
budget.
of, well, outside of the wetland mitigation credits, there wouldn't be any cost to you guys until construction starts, and at that time, the county would carry the financing.
I don't know, but it seems like every month we get another call that we owe more money for something already.
Well, that is part of the $10,000 that,
So once we hit our 10, you guys, county taking over, starting to pay the bills on, or do we have to keep paying?
we could pay bills, get reimbursed for as well.
We would just assume that.
Yeah,
You guys can pay the bills and. Cause this actually says too, that that's all under consideration, what the township gets charged. We don't just automatically pay the $10,000 on the approaches and bridge removal or the engineering. That's all under consideration.
between us and.
So we could pay $1,000 of
We
it
don't see
if we felt like it basically.
Mine too.
The current estimate of the project for the bridge for several is $182,000, of which the township would be responsible for $10,000 of that.
That part.
Of the approach costs, that estimate is at about $70,000. The township would be responsible for up to $10,000 that cost. So there'll be, at the end of the day, the county has to put in $20,000 to get $250,000.
I guess myself, all I'd love to see this handled is the county takes the bill and does it, and we as a township give the county the 10 for the engineering and the 10 for the approach and all that. We give the county the 20,000, we're done, and you guys take care of it. Because to me, that's how it sounds like in this letter, how it's supposed to be, is the county engineer supposed to handle it and. Cause otherwise, it's just a
That could have been,
constant every month of us getting bills.
that could have been happened if that was negotiated when you guys started the project, but that's what I said back then.
There's no record.
What you guys discussed, I have.
Do you guys remember that meeting?
I
I wasn't even on the down.
None of you were on there.
Damn.
Yeah, you remember it then?
Yeah, well,
Was it Tracy and?
Tracy, I think that's where we started, or there,
You guys have township minutes that state.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
The other frustrating for us is when we started this, we got a grant for 20,000 to cover our cost. Well, that grant expired 2 years ago and we had to give that back. So now we're having to use our own money instead of grant money too.
And it's still not getting
Still
complete.
not getting done. And so we almost lost the road here 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So is that grant available to reapply for, or?
Well, when do we apply for it? They're only good for 2-3 years.
Yeah, and it's not a,
Just
it's
can't
not a
keep going.
short process. I mean,
Right,
I messed with that for over 6 months before.
right.
Cause we fix the road one day and 2 days later, it's missing again. It's only gonna take somebody coming down that hill at the wrong time. and it's not marked.
We've got it barricaded now,
Well, it ain't, no, it's fixed again.
yep.
So, I got a question, Matt, and then I guess for. Can we agree on a desired outcome? A vision and for this project, and if we can. Then Matt, with your leadership, decide the process to reach the vision or the outcome. Because going back to a prior staff and what happened, unless we got them documentation, it's really hard. And a lot of us weren't on this board, and so I think focusing a lot of time digging, I think we should be forward focused and outcome based. Can you lead us through this, Matt?
Well, like I said previously, the only thing left is wetland mitigation. And then I'll take it from there into bidding and construction, which will be in the spring.
So then,
So I thought as soon as we got all the permits that we could put it out on bids.
Well, you can put it out on bids, but the time frame for getting box culverts right now is probably about 6 months. So even if you bid it right now, you're not gonna get any work done until next spring anyway.
What
And
about
that's the same situation, what, with other projects that we were working on.
if this is gonna take until next year, we're almost gonna have to put a culvert in there until then.
I guess that's up to the township on what they wanna do with it.
Well, no. No, because it's becoming part of the project. It's taken way too long.
What size culvert is it?
There's,
460?
yeah, the
260s?
260s in there.
You,
But the thing is that they doubled the capacity coming out of the Lightning Lake. So that's how this thing all got started in the first place. Because we've had flooding problems on that road. Luckily this spring we haven't. And, but
But it's still taking out.
it's still taking out the road.
So when they added that box, that added more hydraulic to you guys,
Yeah.
right? So you got more flow down there, right? And there ain't nothing riprap.
And
So it
and you
washes
can't,
out.
they won't let you rip wrap.
Right.
You know, I mean, this is the problem that I see is that it's a township project. County's coordinated. We're dealing with state DNR. And it's federal money. So you want something that's pretty much screwed up,
Here it is.
you know, this is why it takes so long.
We've had the time though. I mean, there's been plenty of time.
Yeah, but it's,
so if the wetland situation gets addressed and handled, is the
Yeah.
process then in place to move forward, Matt?
the last thing to do.
So, and that's, what's the estimated time for that to, you think, to commence and get finished? Or it's already commenced, I
I don't know,
suppose.
as soon as the,
as soon as we write a check for $5,900,
I believe that's what it is,
and then another check for 133, something like that.
for the Bowser.
So the, moving the project forward is being held up by the $5,900?
Well, I just got that phone call last Thursday or Friday.
That's, I wouldn't say it's holding it up, that's just the last step at this time.
Oh, okay.
So that with that 5,900, where does that bring you towards your 20,000?
We're close to 8.
We did 2,000 something last year. And then this would be the next one.
So is this something that the highway committee, Bill and Dwight and Matt, that you can corral this and work with the township and move forward? I don't know if today we can, are we looking to some decision from this body today, or someone help me with this, Troy?
Well, the theory is if you say, well, we'll just cover this, as you set a precedent now that all townships are gonna say, well, we want this road project, and the county just takes over and does it. You know, what I heard today is that the 5,900 and then another will get us to the point of bidding. And I think that's where, I don't know what the estimated time for the mitigation is. But can we, Matt, can that be, this project be bid for even spring work? Once that check is issued and they're doing that mitigation, or do we have to wait till it's done?
So as soon as they send it in, we'll get a receipt that it was processed and then permission go.
Okay, so then, I mean, we can bid it after we get that receipt that,
Yeah, it's much like the 34 project and Trunk Highway 55. They're planning on bidding those in September and October. So they have enough lead time to get the material made for the projects next year.
And the commitment out of the state at the same time. So that road and bridge money is sitting there, town bridge funds is all sitting there,
Yep.
they're dedicated, they're not allocated, correct?
Yep, it's encumbered, it's just not available for withdrawal.
Right. So these guys are looking for a schedule.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
The other I'm looking for is what do we need to provide to you guys, the proof of our spending? I mean, if our,
Just any invoices we paid, we drop them off at the highway department.
I mean, to me, I need reassurance that we're not gonna spend more than 20 on this.
Right.
I don't know, it's gotta get done because 55
Right,
is gonna be shut down.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
we
gotta-
hope it
ours
might be
got to be done before 55,
Yeah,
cause our road's gonna get used. When 55.
guarantee it.
Yep, there's no way around.
Way more than.
Center of the county line.
So Matt, are you comfortable that, obviously, I think we know what the outcome wants to be and that the process is if you work with the township, we can just.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the next step.
Just another project.
So are you comfortable working with Matt and the building
Yeah.
committee, which is Dwight and Bill and
Highway. Maybe.
highway, excuse me. Thank you, highway committee.
Oh, we went through
Like some
So-
sort of stone. Yeah,
So Danny, are you guys gonna send that check in then? 5,900?
we got a meeting tonight.
Because you're expected to pay the 20,000, right? I mean,
Yeah,
even.
Up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, up to 20, yeah.
Yeah.
And, so. I think that needs to be done.
As far as that $20,000 go, if you're looking for something hard, it's written directly in state statute.
yeah, I guess we're just. Like to have everybody aware of it so that it's, you know,
And then we can call a highway committee meeting and then you guys can come there. We can talk, meet down at highway and. We'll get her going here.
okay,
We can't look, we gotta keep coming to get this done, because we didn't come for 4 years and nothing happened. So,
And we've had kind of turnover in the engineering.
yeah, I understand that. And
That shouldn't.
things still have to be
No,
done.
I get it, but the trouble is, you know what I mean, he comes in and we're playing clue here.
yeah,
You know, it's Professor Plum in the scullery with the candlestick, you know what I mean, and who were the players were way back when, so it's an education thing for Matt.
But if the plans were drawn up years ago, it don't take much to look at the plan and say,
No.
oh, we gotta get a
No.
culvert coming.
Right?
yeah.
I agree.
Anything else? Otherwise, I'd like to thank you. Here's your.
Thanks.
I can have.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Okay, we got 9:45 human resources.
Alright, the first thing I have is, we just need to, there needs to be a motion to, designate Ken the authority to sign the UKG agreement to pay that amount we talked at the last board meeting. Justin drafted the agreement, and now it just needs to be signed, and so we need to give, board chair the authority to do so.
So moved. You got that, Chad?
Authorizing the chair to sign the agreement?
Yep.
Okay, we had a motion, we had a second
Second,
discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, thank you. The next thing I have is a memorandum of agreement. So, during our closed session last week, we talked about incentive pay, and so we've talked to the LELS group. voted in favor of the incentive pay that we talked about. So in the memorandum of agreement, we talked about the beginning of the third quarter, which would be July 1st. The incentive pay will be, so for any of these, a deputy that holds any of these certifications would get incentive pay for these. Field training officer, the one change we made there was it'd be a deputy sheriff, limit 2 employees, but then also adding dispatch, because we have FTO that does for dispatch as well, too. And so we added dispatch in there as well. And then use of force, taser, the limit would be 2 employees. Firearm instructor, limit 1 employee. Drug recognition expert, there's no limit on that. EMT, no limit on that. And then drone, limit 2 employees. And so what was talked about, it was be the incentive pay for these, if employee holds one certification or one of these, they get $250 a quarter for this. If they have 2, there's a limit of only 2, but if they hold 2 of these, they would get $500 a quarter for these certifications to do these with the extra training and extra time that they put into doing these and holding them. So the LELS group agreed to this, and so now I'm coming to the board for approval.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the memorandum of
Agreement.
agreement?
Mhm.
Emily, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? On favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The last thing is just an update. We currently have the coordinator position, being advertised along with the office, office manager, account tech. Those are the 2 positions that are being advertised right now. They close on Monday. I did change them to open till filled because obviously this week with being a holiday week, you know, it might be, quieter this week. So I did change those to open until filled, but we'll see where we're at on Monday. And we're just taking applications in right now, so, we'll see what we get on Monday, and then we'll decide, you know, the interview panel, I don't know what the board feels about that. My thought would be, you know, being the strategic planning committee was the one that developed, the coordinator job, you know, functions and duties and things like that, maybe that would be appropriate, but I'm not sure what the board feels on that, so. That's an update on that. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
So maybe we should, I don't know the timing, but as long as we're talking about it. In relation to the interview, the initial interview team that this strategic planning committee. Would be the committee to do that. Comments? Dwight, you have a comment on it?
No. That's fine.
We'll bet the process. If that's the committee that's deciding it, you're the board chair. So it's. In my opinion, it's.
Doyle, you
Should
have
work.
thoughts on it, Doyle?
I think you guys should do
Way to pass that off, Doyle.
If it's not personnel, you won't feel bad you left out?
No, that's fine.
Okay. The other thing I think, you know, that's really important and that we have somewhat of a passion to fill a position is that we also understand that it'll come with a cost and that we understand that in the next budget cycle that we're gonna need to fund this position. And I know there's potential discussions that can be had along that line but we are, I think, we've moved in this direction. We've had motions and second and voted that this is the direction this group wants to head and that we're committed to the process and not swaying from that. I think that's important. And so if there's anyone that wants to weigh in on that, I think now would be a good time. Anything else, Ashley, that you wanna,
I don't have anything else.
you got us absolutely on time.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Combs.
Morning.
Morning.
Couple things, first would be. I need board approval for a resolution approving state of Minnesota joint powers agreements. For the county of Grant on behalf of its sheriff regarding the Minnesota Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, or it's called ICAC. We've long been associated with ICAC. And this agreement is between, as I said, State of Minnesota, Department of Public Safety, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to utilize applicable state and federal laws to investigate and prosecute crimes committed against children and the criminal exploitation on children that is committed and or facilitated by or through the use of computers. We've never had the JPA before. It is now being required. So we went through the process to get the appropriate documents and paperwork drawn up. Jen has long been a member of ICAC. Who else do we have, Jen, that's
We're gonna,
currently, so Elliot and Ken?
so we're gonna send to Elliot.
Okay,
Kenny doesn't want.
okay, so we're gonna have one other additional, and that's our investigators positions to help work with this. Dwight remembers, back in the day, we always were assisted by the chief down in Morris for a lot of years investigating. They were an ICAC member, but we have the abilities and the training to do it ourselves. So we just needed to have this approved by the board and appropriate signatures.
So you mentioned JPA, so that we're entering into joint powers agreement with who?
The state of Minnesota, Department of Public Safety, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Those three
Okay,
agencies.
those three, that was.
Yeah.
And is
Yeah.
this a standard form that they're requiring? or-
Yes,
And
yeah. And then there's
what would there be, or has it been vetted by Justin or not needed or?
not,
Okay,
no. No, he's fully aware of it, and again, we've, unfortunately, it is something that is happening every day, and we do investigate and do arrest and do charge according.
yes.
Our most, can't go into details, but our most recent case is based out of Hoffman, correct? Yeah, so.
So is there a motion? And you to accept the whatever, so Chad gets it right?
Yeah. The joint powers agreement with the ICAC task force.
Yeah, just scan that.
Okay, ICAC.
So, second,
Second.
additional discussion?
Is there a fee attached to it?
No.
None?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next, we need to discuss the law enforcement contracts between the county and the cities for police services. This is our last year, 24 is our last year for the 3-year contract. There's been discussion off and on with the city councils, all of which that we meet with regularly after the first of the year. That time frame may be spread out over a 2-3 month time frame.
They're aware that they are at their third year of the 3-year current contract. During one of our personnel committee meetings, we had some additional discussion as far as where are we at in that gap with what we called our loaded rate. And that loaded rate back in, and Dwight, you could help me out as far as the date when this all kind of started. The loaded rate for a deputy, you know, included wages, uniforms, squad car, all those things that would require a deputy. And we had to break it down to an hourly rate of pay, which was $53.33. That was the figure back then. That figure has always remained at $53.33. When we renegotiate city contracts, historically, again, it's always been a roughly a 3% increase per year, which equates to about $1,200 roughly for each one of those 3 years, or $3,600 over the 3-year period. Well, we've obviously gotten behind on that loaded rate. So I had gathered some figures, worked with Chad, to come up with a new figure of what the loaded rate roughly should be, which would be, $70.55, which is a $17.22 difference.
70.55.
$70.55,
So
which was
would that
17.
include the incentive pay we just approved? No,
So that's a $17.22 difference. Now, obviously, we can't expect, or go to the cities and say, well, here's the new loaded rate and, you know, these are what the contract prices should be. Now, there has been that talk and concern over some time that, you know, when is too much, right, when it comes to the contracts.
so could I interrupt your second?
Yep.
So if you apply the 53 all around it in the 70, what is that? What's the analytics on an annual basis? What does that 70 mean to?
Well, if you went, if you,
The hours.
the easiest way to do it would be to take, the 1722 times whatever our, contract hours for those cities would be, the annual hours.
So do we know?
So,
Like,
well,
say
take
Hoffman, for instance.
730 times at 1722. Yeah, 12,570. There has been some talk amongst city councils that, you know, would the board consider a fixed rate, a fixed number, moving forward? Obviously, I can't answer those questions. I did encourage the city councils, when we did meet with them, to, reach out to each one of you individually for their areas. I don't know if anybody's ever done that. We had recently had a discussion with the city of Elbow Lake last week. Again, this conversation would be between the mayor and the clerk and Jen and I discussing the contracts. So it's kind of where we're at now. You know, we're gonna have to make a decision. I did figure a 3% increase again, just to give everybody an idea of what that may look like. So Ashby, Barrett, Herman, and Hoffman are all under the same contract. They're all the same. They're 730 hours annually. And if we were to move ahead with a 3% increase for those 4 towns, you'd be looking at, for 2025, it'd be $43,813.09. 2026 would be $45,127.48. And 2027 would be $46,481.30. Okay. That's Ashby, Barrett, Herman, and Hoffman. They're all under the same contract. Wendell and Norcross are also the same contract, but they only pay for 96 hours annually. So if we went with Wendell and Norcross, again, figuring the 3% for 2025, we'd be at 5,594.40. 26, we'd be at 5,762.23. And 27, we'd be to 59,3509. The city of Elbow Lake, who has got the biggest contract, and they have 2,920 hours annually for patrol. You could figure the 3% if you don't want to listen to all the numbers, but in 2025, they'd be at 175,257.63. Then you can take the 3% on top of that for the next 2 years. You know, keep in mind, I think it was the city of Elbow Lake was the last to enter into contract agreements with us. And that was back in 2017. Halfway through 2017, and back in 2017, they had over a $200,000 budget for the city of Elbow Lake for their own police department. So even, you know, 5 years later, this is still a great benefit to them and a great cost savings to them. But there is that concern, speaking for all the city councils, that, you know, when does it get to be too much? And so I guess I'm looking for a direction from the board on how would you like me to proceed with this, keeping in mind, you know, that the cities also have to start looking at their preliminary budgets for 2025.
Question, John.
Yeah.
Do you have a target percentage of your budget that you try to collect out of the contracts? I mean, there's no comparative, the loaded rate. You haven't,
No,
you don't
that-
face it from that angle.
No, the contributions by the cities, you know, historically have, and please correct me if I'm wrong, for those that have been involved in it, have just, it's been what it is, what it is, and the county then absorbs that additional cost.
Yeah.
We've never been able to really chase it, as he was kind of explaining, Ken, with trying to keep up with the cost of the increase. And just always kind of entered into that agreement of that 3%, because that seemed to be feasible for everybody. Is that it? Would that be accurate, Troy?
I think so, you know, that the thing to me is, I was wanting to ask John for a new loaded rate, because back in 17, 18, the county was actually charging more than what our loaded rate was. So if you look at that, it's kind of startling that we went to where the county was actually charging more than what the loaded rate was, to now we're behind $17.22. So you see what happens in 7 years, 6 years. So that is the part that, yeah, it's alarming.
Way back when, that loaded rate was like, what was it, like $42 or
No,
something? Like
5330.
it is now. You know,
That's what it's always been.
but it was before, when Troy was a sheriff, it was like 40-some dollars, wasn't it, Chad? You were.
What's went up 3% every year, so it had to have been lower.
Yeah, it was.
No, that we don't, but
I don't.
that 3%, that 3% increase is not figured off the 5333. The 53, the way I understand it is, the initial contracts were figured off the 5333 for the annual hours.
Yep.
The 3% increases per year are not figured off the 5333, it's figured off the annual hours, I suppose you could say, times the 5333.
But if you divide the contract, the hourly rate would change.
Yeah.
That's kind of what.
Yeah.
So I got a question. What about this jail budget? Where's that? Are you gonna, I mean, would this kind of help with that inclusion of, because these jails are gonna start charging more money. Douglas is going up and Travis is going up. So.
Well, we're already at what, $65 or $75 an hour?
Yep.
Or a day, excuse me. Now, we've had our discussions at our third district meetings, a lot of which the sheriffs do have jails. Now, there's been no further discussion with them saying that they're increasing their rates, so I don't know.
I'm getting it from commissioners, not sheriffs. Cause it's, Travis is,
Well, even if the rate went up to $100, I think generally historically, my jail budget is right around 69,000, just as a rough guess. And I think we're very, very far from even coming close to that. So I don't, and just kind of speaking, off point a little bit, looking ahead at the budget. I don't believe that I would be increasing my jail budget. Okay.
So,
But for clarification, that's not included in this hourly.
no. No, I'm just talking about, the big picture here.
No.
Mhm.
so if any, I guess, I don't, you've heard from Elbow Lake. I don't know if anyone else has heard from the communities, is what, $12,500? How that meshes with their,
But probably not gonna mesh very well.
well, that's,
That's just it.
so, yeah, I kind of assume that,
Well, cause Elbow Lakes would be way more than that.
yeah.
Theirs
Well,
would
yeah,
be like
it-
50.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the contract, in 27, they'd be almost looking at $186,000. Still, for the city of Elbow Lake, and I made this, noted this during our meeting was, they're very fortunate.
So,
I'll leave it that way.
so Chad, you started. We'll be working on the budget, so really what it amounts to is if you didn't go with the new numbers, then basically it's gonna come out of our levy.
What we do, we prepare an entire budget of expenses for the sheriff's department. Not looking at revenues. And we look at the revenues. So if we, meaning the county, meaning the sheriff's department, didn't have any revenues, you would have X.
Okay.
As a levy.
Yep.
But then you start adding your revenues in, whether that's state, whether that's all the different programs. One of which of those revenues is city contracts.
Yep.
If you did not have those city contracts, yes, we would be levying, what do we budget for city contracts, just about 400,000? Off that my head, John? Yeah, it was 3. We would.
Yeah, say the last part, you'd be what for?
We'd be levying about $400,000 more if all the city contracts went away.
Oh, yeah, if they all of them went away.
If they all went.
No. So the point would be as we're proceeding forward with these communities, at the end of the day, the difference is gonna be on the backs of the taxpayers, one way or the other.
Right. At the end of the day, it's all tax money, it's just who's taxing,
Yeah,
right? I mean, my concern is we haven't, we talked about a loaded rate and we didn't figure in a building payment into the loaded rate. And then we looked at, just in 17-18, we put on 3 deputies to cover Elbow Lake, Ashby, onboarding them. And I don't wanna get into that discussion, cause that gets back to having one deputy on duty, we don't want that.
No, we can't have that. in this day.
So, to me, it's. I was never looking at getting that 17-22 difference.
Oh, yeah, and I
Is it,
totally,
do we,
yeah, I totally understand that.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking, is it a 3% increase or is it no? Going forward, if there's no increase, I mean, that's. You're falling farther behind, and we've seen what happened in 7 years.
Right, and
Yep.
and I have not, we not have had the number discussions with the councils. It's just that you're aware that this is the last year, we have to renegotiate. And so they don't know what the numbers are, but if, just a little math, if they look at it historically, you know, that 3%. You know, I don't know if the answer is there. If we're between 3% and 0. I don't know what the answer is, and that's why I'm, you know, looking for direction by the board on how do you feel that we should proceed with this?
Dwight had a question.
Okay, I'll just give you a little history here and then my thoughts on this. The first police contract was with Hoffman in 1989. It was for $20,000. In 1991, when Shalene got to be sheriff, he hired Marlon Riley out of Herman. He cut the contract with Hoffman to $10,000 to Herman, with a stipulation that no deputy had to live in Hoffman. I told him not to do that, but I was just a deputy, so, but anyway, so then when I got to be sheriff, we were negotiating with these towns and these police contracts. They were vital, you know. I took pride in trying to provide a service for these towns, with a deputy living in each community. And, so what I'm getting at here is when Herman, went from their police, I don't know what their budget was, but I'll tell you, it was probably more than 43,000 in 1991, which is 33 years ago. So, you know, these police contracts, yeah, that's a lot of money, but that's where the calls, most of the calls are. They're where people are. They're not out in the farm field where deer live. These calls come in where the people live. And so they need more police services, and that's where the calls are. So what I'm saying is that this is a real good deal for those cities. They have no liability. They don't have any insurance. They don't have to buy the cars. They don't have personnel issues. And I think most of our towns see that benefit. So that's what I'm saying. That 33 years ago when we started these contracts, you know, these police budgets were probably more than what they're paying now. And so I just feel that, you know, it's a vital deal. We need these contracts, and those towns need us in there. And then with their hourly rates, all of those towns, it goes way past what we guarantee them. You get a homicide in Elbow Lake, they're hundreds of hours past that. Ashby, you know, they come on the contract with that homicide, they're hundreds of hours in to the good. So I think the cities really have a good deal here, and they're providing a good service, so.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things when we do meet with the councils at the beginning of each year, you know, we always talk about the previous year's total amount of hours that are spent within the towns, and reminding everybody that they contract for, you know, 730 or 96 or 2,000 some hours annually. And we always report to them also what are the documented hours that our deputies remember to document when it comes to the cases and everything like that. And every year we are well over what the required hours are. And it's, you know, 150 hours, 120 hours. And I'm just trying to look through some of my old figures, 178 hours extra, 361 extra hours. Now, those extras, and I make it very clear to the council members that, you know, those are hours that obviously we don't charge for. We've entered into a contract and agreement with those cities regarding the annual hours, and that's what they pay us for. We don't keep track and say, oh, wait a minute, we reached our 730 for the city of Barrett. Now we're done patrolling and answering calls there for the rest of the year. We don't get that opportunity to do that. And so, yeah, like Dwight had indicated, you know, we are always over. You know, some of the councils said, well, geez, do we need to pay you more? Do we need to contract for more hours? And I tell them, no, we don't. You know, I mean, these are the contracts and this is what you're agreed upon, and if we're over, it's part of the game.
So do you approximately know comparatively the calls within the cities in the county versus rural?
Well, obviously, you know, if you go by population, right? And so all the cities being the populated places, that's where the majority of our calls are. I couldn't break it down percentage wise, Ken, it's.
Well, and the only reason, and I think it's okay to address this, whether we go to the $17, I kind of agree with Troy. However, if I remember right, at our meeting, Carl told us 78.8% of the property tax comes from the ag land. And so if we don't assess probably where the calls are, I mean, I know we're not talking about, I don't think, going away with it, but it's okay to address it. That some increase, now I don't know what that sum is, but it does make sense what you're bringing forward is what I guess.
That was always my argument, Mr. Chair, with, right, the calls come from where the people are, you know, Lawrence Township probably has 50, I don't know how many people they got out there, but there's not many. And you might get 3 calls a year out there, where in Ashby or those other towns, you might get 200. And see, so it's where the people live, that's where the calls come, and that's where you have to respond in those areas. So.
John, you put a spreadsheet together that showed, you know, what was billed for hours and what you guys actually worked. And you know, that would be nice to get in an email that laid all that out so we can kind of understand that and if somebody questions us.
But John, you do that every month with the city council, right? You send them their.
They get the activity
Yeah,
report.
yeah.
Yeah, they get that sent to them. It just doesn't say that, you know, deputy so-and-so spent X amount of hours.
No.
It's just that these are the calls that we responded to.
Unbilled hours versus contact hours and, you know, you.
No, it's not broken down, billed and not billed. It's,
Okay, I thought you did that one.
No.
At the end of the year, we add up all the hours that we've done.
And send it to them.
and send it to them.
For town,
Right.
broke down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Troy, you want to-
Yeah, I would just like to make sure we're all thinking that the same way on this is that there's 3 parts to this contract. There's the sheriff's office, this board, and then a city board. And our part, and anybody that disagrees, correct me, is we set a dollar figure for a staffing level. So if the cities agree to 53.33, that means we will have X number of deputies for how the sheriff, because they're ultimately, he's in charge of the sheriff's office, how he patrols and does, and the city said yes for that amount, 2 hours, 8 hours, whatever it is. So just, so I am looking at this the right way. How this is, so our role is the staffing and the dollar figure.
I don't know if there's another way to approach it. I guess the only thing I would say, and I don't know if it happens, I know we've talked about being short deputies and really stretching the personnel. Should there be some flex in the contract where if you can't be there, that, I mean, it's because of people gone on vacation or not having staff, I mean, is there a little bit of this?
We've never, that I can recall, we've never not met our contractual obligations with those cities when it comes to our hours to be patrolled.
So
That's, and I never wanna be there.
Right.
Unfortunately, that, regardless of whether it's investigations or just regular patrol, we've always been able to meet it. Now, there may be a day that we're short, but in the long run, at the end of the year, it's always above and beyond what we've been contracted for. And I'd rather keep it that way, you know.
So what's the timing component? And then we need to have these,
Well, you know, it's from preliminary budgets, right? It's no different from the county. you know, the city was gonna try to set premium budgets moving into 25.
Will that
So I'm
be
guessing they would want to have an idea of
for
what they
their
would have,
August meeting?
don't have to contract for,
It's gonna be before August.
you know, so I think. And I thought about this before coming to this meeting, I think for. Purposes of them setting their preliminary budgets, can it be presented to them that. They're gonna base the police contracts off the current 24 price? You know,
Not recognize the 17.
well, I don't think we can go that 1722. I mean, that's the difference. I think that. Again, something that cities have been used to is that 3% increase, which I think, which in the past, the board has always felt fair. As far as an increase. So I think maybe that's what. You know,
So let me ask you, do you have Hoffman's 2023 rate or 24 rate? What's that dollar amount? If you could do the calculator, Jen. I'm not,
32,000, okay, so it's 42,536.98.
42,536, divide that by the 300 and, what's the hours?
730.
Divide that out, that number by 730.
5333.
But if you're taking a 3% increase and you aren't changing to 53.33,
The 3% increase has always just been based off of the overall dollar amount.
but if you divide it back, that should change the 53.33, and if you do that, then it's not 17. Because if you go up on the total and you divide it by the same hour, your rate, your.
Well, no, it won't be, so in 2025, it won't be 1722. If we even if we do a 3%, it's gonna be a larger. It's gonna be more than 1722. Cause you got 2.75 per step, and then you've got a COLA of 3%. So just wages are going up by 0.75%. So that number, that 1722, correct me if I'm wrong, John, was this year's difference. Next year, it'll be larger.
Is my math funky?
So how you
To say the least.
Well, but my point is if you have a loaded rate and you take it times the hours equals a sum. If you include the sum 3% and you don't change the hours, your loaded rate will go up.
Loaded rate and what we're charging are two completely different numbers.
Well, it's not if you compare it to the new $17, because if the loaded rate does go up by the rate of 3%, the difference is not the complete difference, because we've taken increases.
But you can't say a loaded rate will go up 3% because that would assume that the county's costs are fixed at 3% to go up. So if we charge a loaded rate today of 70.55 and we only go up 3% for next year, we're no longer charging our loaded rate. A loaded rate is calculated as what the actual costs are. You can't assign a percentage number to go up and say that's your loaded rate, because you have to figure out what the actual cost is.
But that true cost is still more than $70.55 per hour. You know what I mean? To keep a deputy, staffing, the whole 9 yards, car, the whole thing. What was that? It was 80 bucks, 85 bucks way back when. Cause I remember, you know what I mean? But we didn't know.
No, in 17, 18, it was 40 something. Was upper 40s, I believe.
If it were figured, we're not gonna go there then.
No, but I think what we need to get, what we need today is we either need to make a decision that we're gonna charge X for 25. Set a date that we're gonna, of the next meeting that says we're gonna make that decision. Or, I mean, you can say the city's figuring 3%, but we'll let you know by November, so you can take it out of your final, it wouldn't be any more than X% or. But we need to make sure that the cities know, because I remember being very frustrated on the city council when we would get next year's contract after we've already set our preliminary and we didn't have that increase.
Right.
So we need to make sure they know before they set their preliminary.
I just did the math. What I'm getting at, if you take Hoffman's 42,536 divided by 730 hours, it's 58.26. It's not $17, because they're actually paying 58.26. That's what I'm getting at. So when we're telling them it's $17 difference, it's not 17, it's less than 17, because we're charging them more than 53. You have to do that math if you're gonna apply a loaded rate to the discussion. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, it does, and it's like I said earlier, it depends on where you're taking that increase from.
Well, at some
Right.
point it relates to the hours. So we can't use the hourly loaded rate at one point and ignore it on the other. And so that's why I'm saying if we're talking about 17, it's not. That was up to what I was trying to get across. And at the end of the day, it's gonna have to be a dollar amount, and I don't know, what are you suggesting? Because obviously, you said it has to be for August, these council meetings are gonna be held either this week or next.
I would feel comfortable in notifying the cities that for budget purposes, the board would be looking at no more than a 3% increase to the current city contracts. And we don't know what that, you know, again, you could figure what that 3% would be. You know, but for the purpose of them setting their prelims, that's the number I would like to get out there. We have to, obviously, the board needs to agree on what is acceptable to the board when it comes to the increase. What would they expect to see?
And that was last year's, the 3 years, you put 3% into each contract. The last time we did this.
Well, I think 3% is reasonable. So. That's my thoughts. I don't think we should be any less than that either.
So would we be no more? And that would be doing a 3-year commitment at the no more?
Well, and again, we've always done 3-year. I don't see that there'd be a reason not to do it again. But the cities may want to not do that. I can't speak for them. You know, they may say, well, let's just look at a 1-year contract. And revisit it next year. But if 3% is fine, then that's what I will inform the councils of for budgeting purposes, and we can further we can have further discussions after that.
Well, I guess what I would say is 3% next year. I'm not saying years 2 and 3 would be more, but at this point, what I would say is 3% for next year, because that gives us time to work the second and third year. That's not, you're not in a budgeting situation at that point.
Right.
That's kind of what I was gonna get at, is because, I mean, we have the same situation with our budgets, that if we say no more for 3 years, we've really locked ourselves into.
Okay, so you just like me to present requesting a 3% increase just for 2025.
So in essence, we're doing a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
then.
Well, I mean, we have the contract through this year. Let's say we come to a deal with the cities in October. Well, we've set I mean, in my mind, we haven't voted, but in my mind, we've set what next year is, where we could still in September, October, negotiate years 2 and 3.
Right.
So it's, I don't like the idea of 1 year, because then you're just continually.
You're always
Yeah.
in every 6 months you're. Working.
So along that line, if you build a 3 years, I guess one of the questions I have, so we really aren't recognizing the loaded rate difference. other than at the 3% rate. And I don't have a problem that we're not. But just so we understand that and I think that's one of the.
Oh, no, by having that number put here today, we've just acknowledged there's a difference. I mean, that was the whole point of asking for it, is we need to acknowledge what that difference is.
Well, it's about $12, over $12 an hour.
Right, so I mean, no, I mean, that's,
That's how you spread the cost over the townships.
Well, keep in mind. Way back. There's 2 people here, 3 people go back to way back. Dealt with this. I don't know that it was ever the intention of the county. To recover their true costs. For a contract with the cities.
Thank you.
Number one.
You're exactly right.
Because we know that there's gonna be these big overages
It's just not gonna happen.
No,
on.
Number two, it worked out well for the cities because they could control their costs of having their own police department and in a sense guarantee that they're gonna have coverage.
Yeah.
If they had a single deputy or a police chief and everything was gone, we as a county were covering those hours anyways, right or wrong, John.
Correct.
Number three, so that helped out the cities in that fashion. It helped out the county offset their levy by recovering some costs from the city so that our levy didn't increase because of that.
Yeah.
Keep in mind this, yes, we probably are going backwards on some costs with the contracts. However, if you're a taxpayer in the city of Hoffman, you are number one, when the top thing of your property tax statement says county. They're paying Grant County Sheriff's Department taxes.
Yeah.
Then they get to the city, again, now they're paying city police protection. So it's not just the townships that are picking up the difference.
Right.
The cities are also paying their property taxes too.
Yeah.
Dwight, you probably remember, that was the conversation of some of the cities. We're getting doubled in.
Right. And my response to that, of course, was that the call volume. Yeah, and that's,
It was a discussion.
yeah, but it's.
So,
So that it's not like
Right.
they're not paying anything into the
No.
sheriff's department besides their city
Right.
contract.
so the 3% makes sense in the Senate, based on
I
that.
don't know, I'm just saying that just because they pay, the city of Hoffman pays, doesn't mean that those taxpayers also aren't paying into the sheriff's office.
Right.
Yeah.
They're paying property tax.
That's right.
So we can sit here and worry about 17 and 53 and 62 and 47 and 720 and all this stuff. Does it benefit the city? Does it benefit the county to negotiate the price? If it is, that's pretty much all you got to talk about.
So how do we want a motion today? If we go with what we said, that does appear to be moving to a 1-year contract, and I don't know if that we don't want.
Well, I think it all depends on how I worded in my, presentation or letter to the cities, just indicating that, the board would agree of a 3% increase for 2025, but leaving 26 and 27 open to negotiations for further increases. Something to that extent, and if somebody can help me with that letter. Because we're never gonna be able to make it all with the council meetings before prelims are set.
I would just let them know that we've agreed to no more than 3% for 25, but we'd still prefer, in my opinion, is we'd still prefer a 3-year contract. It's
Right.
just for budgeting issues.
Right. So yeah, I guess maybe a motion on it, then that would.
Yep, is
That would
there a
suffice.
motion to that effect?
So move.
There a second? Discussion? All fair to say aye?
I,
Oh. Carried.
I'm sorry that ran over a lot longer.
Good discussion.
Yeah, that is good.
So. It would be here for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Okay,
I'll wait.
Would you like us to come back before November?
If that works.
To discuss 25 and 26? Or
Well,
what the council are saying?
Okay, you gotta talk a little louder. What was the question?
Do you want us to come back like in November to talk about 25 and 26 to give them this contract or?
that's the $1 million question, right? Is what, I mean,
Oh, I got that.
Yep.
I think that when you talk to those city councils, you should come back and report to us what they think.
They said,
Yeah, that'd be best.
We don't want them to think we're gonna subsequent year, that you signed a contract and we can jack the price up. I mean, that's kind of signing something that you don't know. So in that respect, that gotta give them some assurance, I would think. Maybe we should have done the 3 today, I don't know. We're kicking the can down the road, Dwight?
No. I don't.
Okay, Reed. Great.
Subjective they are to. I get chewed up quite a bit.
Yeah,
We're gonna sit behind you, you go up here.
yeah.
You're gonna hide behind.
But.
Yeah, I'll sit here and be moral support.
We got rid of them.
Putting you on the spot, see how you do.
Right.
Okay,
No, like, yeah, no.
Mr. Peterson, what do you have for us today?
So the county has a 10-year solid waste plan that is due up in 26. And it's 25, sorry, yeah, 25, but 6 months before the plan is due, you gotta have basically a pretty close to final draft done. So that's coming here, 7-8 months, so we're trying to line up a contract with a consultant who that's basically what they do for a couple, they've done it for Big Stone, Stevens, Chippewa, and a couple other counties around, hired them to help write these plans, because there's like 35 or 40 steps through the state that you gotta have filled out. It's kind of a big labor intensive deal for us, and since Greg and I are still kind of learning on the fly here on some of the solid waste things, this will kind of help us steer the ship away. So we're hoping to contract with Upper Minnesota Valley Regional Development Commission, and it's a guy he's out of Alec. So he's pretty close and pretty straightforward. He's wrote, I think, 3 plans now, so he's got it figured out pretty good, and the state's approved all his plans. So what we're trying to do is get a plan and a contract with him, so we can start working on that big 10-year plan. So, and it's, so I think the draft is due in about 8 months, so we're trying to hurry up and get it kind of contract signed so we can get him start working and we can get all the data he needs from us and back and forth, start all that dialogue. So I'm looking from you guys, is it okay to sign it or to have you sign it? Either one is.
And this has to be in, so we can get score dollars coming back to the
Correct.
county, correct?
Yes, and
This
then
is a requirement.
it is, yes,
Yep.
it's part of the requirement for that, and then it's. A good way too to figure out the system as a whole, it's kind of your 10-year plan is how does your whole solid waste, recycling, organics, all that work all as one? And how are you moving to get to the state required 35%, or if they increase that percentage at all, how are we gonna get there? So, and basically here's where everything goes when it comes in. It really spells out the plan of how the county operates and. How are you gonna improve some of these things, which through the solid waste committee, meeting with the cities and townships, that's kind of that's why we wanna get this ship going as soon as we kinda can.
So you're looking for a motion to approve moving
Yes.
forward with the management contract with
Yes.
UNVRDC?
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Upper Minnesota Valley Regional Development Commission.
And we are in reality, we're out of their region, but our region doesn't have somebody who writes the plans. So they went to their board last week and said, hey, can we work outside of our region in your region? And both boards said, yeah, that's okay, since they don't have a designated person to do those.
So our development commission's up in Fergus.
Yeah.
Right, which one I can't think of, was it West Central?
I think so, yeah.
You should get it.
And the approximate cost was,
About 14,000 some odd change and
14.3 plus.
plus a couple other expenses, so not terrible.
is there a motion to that effect?
So
Second,
Second, with reservation, what's plus mean?
It usually with a lot of places they have to travel to, so they have to build in travel time, but for us, since it's not, there'll be almost no travel.
So it's like if he's in Alec, he'll charge mileage whenever he's gotta come over here.
Which most of his meetings he does through Zoom now, so it's kind of a leftover thing, but it's still in there in case we need to have him come. to
We'll
speak
have
to
to
us
have a
all
public
this
hearing,
In a public hearing,
right? So he'll need to be here.
yeah,
And if
for
he-
those kind of
And if
things.
he prints out the handouts for the public hearing as
Versus
opposed
we
to
print out.
in-house, then you're paying 5 cents a sheet of paper or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Our goal is to we'll manhandle a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and keep, if we do the putting in the paper, or if he takes care of all that, there's a different, and we'll do it obviously, but that's. Depends on how hands-on, which county he's working as wants to be, and we'll be very hands-on.
And these guys are quasi government, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a private consultant.
Yeah.
They're going around trying to help counties with these.
Yeah.
I think we all recognize that solid waste is just, it's getting to be a very expensive venture, and you gotta try to keep your costs down.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Yes, that was it? That was it. So now it's 10:51. We are done unless we have some committee reports. Yep,
He mentioned it.
yep.
Okay, so we met, the EMS, Grand County EMS Committee met yesterday, in Ashby. Hoffman, Ashby, Lake Region, and Grand County were there. And, we discussed, you know, what do you need, you know? And, the basic answer was retention and recruitment. They need manpower. They need some way to hang on or get these people to volunteer and hang on to them. So that was a big thing, but, I asked Lake Region what their funding needs in the next 10 years, and he's told us that, you know, he figures about $750,000 in the cost for ambulances and things like that. And then I asked, you know, Eric, he had to leave the meeting, but we were wondering, you know, what this money that came from the state now, what each agency was gonna do with it. And I texted Eric this morning, and what did they get, Bill, like 100?
You're talking Lake Region?
Lake Region's
100.
What? Yeah,
20.
they haven't talked about it yet with their upper people. Ashby got $97,000, and they're putting a new addition on the firewall there so they can get their ambulances, both ambulances in there, and they're digging right now. It's 18 feet out in front and 40 feet wide. And so that's what they're doing with their 97. Hoffman got 53,000, and they, you know, Ryan, he didn't know for sure, but, you know, this money, you can't stock, but you gotta spend it in 25. So they can't hang on to that money to buy an ambulance with down the road, but he figures in 4 years, they're gonna need an ambulance down there. But his biggest thing was manpower, because Hoffman pays pretty good. You know, they pay, you know, up to, I don't know, $50 a run and things like that, and $70 for the guy filling out the paperwork. So they pay good, but they just don't have the volunteers that they need, to do that. So, you know, I know we have talked, you know, what can the county do, you know, and we talked about, you know, possibly levying some money and putting it, you know, towards equipment or whatever, but they were talking yesterday, you know, the biggest incentive probably would be some retirement plan, you know. And we've talked about that, but I don't know how you go about doing that exactly. We did have a meeting a while back where we talked to somebody about, you know, having a little retirement plan, put so much a year in there and things like that, but so that's kind of where we're at.
And also Spock brought up the fact that they're gonna do some training at the school over there and try to get, you know, some of these kids and, you know, maybe if there's, you know, people out in the community that wanna get trained to be an EMT or first responder, stuff like that, they're gonna do it at the school. They're gonna reach out to West Central and Salt Lake and see if they can get some type of a following there. Because if Hoffman, you know, yes, Ryan said it all. He goes, we need people, we need bodies, we need redundancy in the system. You know what I mean? He's working in Douglas County and, you know what I mean? There's nobody around Hoffman during the day. So they're struggling with, you know, people just responding. So they're hopefully, I don't know, Jared Olson was gonna get tied into some of that training, so then he as a city man is around all day long and he can possibly respond with. With, the ambulance or whatever, pilot car or what, however it works, his own vehicle or city vehicle or something like that to respond to these calls. So we need recruitment, big time. Right,
Yeah, how do we get them?
how do we do that?
You know, the trouble of it is, it's good to have the kids do it, but so when they go to college, then you lose them.
Right. That's what
So are
they're.
they, the conversation I heard was that they get them certified and then they go off to college, and by the time, if they do come back, they've lost their certification, so they didn't get the continuing education.
Yep.
So, well, we'll keep plugging, but that's, I wanted to have the meeting just so we had some thoughts here as far as, when we present our budgets, or,
Right.
so I don't know.
And Rasmussen and Backer were at that meeting with us.
Yeah.
So, and Jordan was the guy that did, generated a lot of the language in the bill. So I don't know, he says you guys you gotta get your game on and you gotta figure out what you need to be doing. And you gotta have narratives to go in to make sure that this revenue is, the justification is there.
Yeah, and that was a one-time, revenue from the state.
Yeah.
It was a one-time deal, has to be spent in 25. So,
Well, Burns having the same struggle up there. Remember, you did talk about that a little bit, Jordan did?
Yeah.
Or Senator Rasmussen. Yeah. So they're trying to figure it out, get the wrinkles out of this thing. And we're low population down here. So we're probably gonna struggle with it unless we get, older people that are, probably in their. They're done raising their kids and they're in their fifties and they still got some good health and they want to get involved. I don't know. We get about 3,000 working productive people in the county and stuff to staff that.
Okay, I know it's a challenge and. Anything other committee reports? So the question then, anything else? Otherwise, I'd adjourn the meeting at 10:57. So the question is, do you want me to call Missy and we go take the picture and come back and do your thing? That way these guys can go.
Yeah.
And we actually could come back and meet at the court